Welcome, sexy viewers. This is Kiiroo HQ, a podcast about sex, sexuality, and sex text. I'm Urban, your host for today. In this edition, we'll be exploring the world of sex text, finding answers and opinions in regard to burning questions and interesting statements. We will also be giving away some wonderful Kiiroo toys, so for later. So pay close attention for those who are watching and listening right now. Now, as you can expect from us, we'll always have a guest. For today, it's Mix, sex tech specialist, editor from TheNextWeb magazine. Great to have you here. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, and thank you for having me. This is actually my very first podcast, so I'm very excited to be on the very first episode of the Kiiroo HQ
Kiiroo
podcast.
HQ.
There we go.
Cool. Great to have you here. We'll be talking about a lot of things what you've been doing. But first off, let's go to like the last news around adult industry. Adult performers get engaged after a gangbang. Now, basically what happened was after a shoot male-on-male gangbang movie, actor Brian Bonds proposed to Mason Lear and he accepted. I'm quoting, Bonds and Lear and eight other men had just finished filming a gangbang when Bonds popped the question. Lear accepted. It was easily the most romantic thing we've seen here, wrote the company rep on their Twitter feed. Congrats, guys. Another quote. This is how I wanted to propose my future husband, Bonds explained. With my friends around after a crazy fun time. I don't give a buck-toot beep what conservative or anybody thinks. So, quite an original way of proposing someone after a gangbang. Don't you agree?
That's a beautiful way of proposing. I just wonder, did the proposal go into the movie?
I don't think it went into the movie, but from what I heard, it was just after they finished off the set and they were doing, like, they explained a gangbang, and pretty much afterwards was the romantic part. So going from one situation to another, bringing it really emotional and really beautiful.
Oh, they're gonna have a wonderful memory from before the proposal as well, I guess.
I guess so. Well, congratulations to the happy couple. Another item. Sex robots might induce sex addictions. Sex robots are said to be both a boon for lonely people as well as a danger to latent sex addicts. Psychotherapist Dr. Thaddeus Birchett explained to Daily Star that sex robots might induce sex addiction as advanced bots that boast AI might give vulnerable people another tool to feed their compulsion. So basically what that means is like it can have the same addiction as for people with alcohol, for example. Do you kind of agree on that matter?
Honestly, I think that sex addiction and perhaps masturbation addiction, those things are real things. They exist as conditions. I'm not sure we're close to the point where AI or AI robots, whatever, are going to feel so realistic that you get addicted to them. Perhaps you're going to get addicted for a certain time. In the end, I think you're going to need that human touch or at least something different to experience.
Do you think so? Because I happen to find out that some people can easily get alienated due to addiction. Like literally shut themselves down from the real world.
Yeah, it's a good point as well. I guess you also lose touch for some things, but I just don't know if robots are going to be all that pleasant in the beginning. I've seen some pretty awful robots so far. It doesn't seem to be so much fun. Maybe I haven't really experienced the right robot.
It's a way to
So
express.
it already exists there. It's manifesting itself through another medium, more or less. That's what I understand. And I still think that the medium is important because in the end, that's how you're satisfying yourself. And if you're unable to reach a certain level of satisfaction that you're accustomed to, I don't think you're going to use that object in the first place, which makes it difficult to get addicted to. But I do agree, assuming the robot is just an excellent piece of technology, everything you've ever wanted, why not? You can get addicted to anything.
Now, the next item, which is a very interesting one, is a dating app which has been developed by Andrei Yaroshenko, and it's an app that links people due to sex fantasies and desires regarding those. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know what I think about that. There's so many dating apps out there these days. Fantasies,
But it's a new thing when dealing with an app that really links up people regarding sex fantasies. So basically, you might find a match which is
Yeah, I
all
think
based on fantasies.
that's a good thing. I also think that I guess there's also the privacy aspect, because you're putting yourself out there, what you like. Some people might not be all that comfortable with that. Other people, that might be just right around their alley, because they can openly show what they want, make it easier to find other people to select. Which sometimes with Tinder, for example, it's a bit difficult. Sometimes you scan through a lot of people, and in the end, most of them you're probably not going to be a match with in any way, even if you like each other sexually or visually, whatever. You're just basically going through it's a window shopping thing. There's almost no personality at play, unless you pay close attention maybe to the bio or whatever. Some people don't even have a bio. How do you judge based on that? So in that sense, I think that it's not a bad idea. I just wonder how popular it can get.
Cool. One thing though, ever, would you use it?
Sure, if there's a large enough database in Amsterdam, user base in Amsterdam, I wouldn't mind giving it a go. Why not?
All right.
I don't know what I would put down as my sexual fantasy. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, I would give it a go.
Well, I think I would use it, even though if it would only be for just checking out what type of fantasies are related to different persons. Like if there would be a match, like it would be interesting to find out like who shares the same type of fantasies and desires.
Let me turn the table on you and ask you a question. What would you put down if you had to choose a fantasy? Is that too much on the spot?
No, actually not. Like it's a real strange fantasy that I have, but I have a weak spot for yoga pants.
Yoga pants? Man, that's
actually
a good one.
I call it curse. I call it the curse pants, because basically what I've seen these days is like whenever women and I prefer to be into women. So let's just first put that aside. But the thing is like whenever you see women wearing those yoga pants, man, it's like it doesn't matter how they look on the upside, but it's more like this distracting part about the yoga pants, and basically they know they're doing that.
No, I know the yoga pant factor as well. Yeah, I might actually go for the same fucking fantasy.
Really?
It's not a bad option.
No. But I have to quote Mr. Yaroshenko though. He wants the app to be a guide for sexual development, not somewhere to find the nearest body for your quick sexual discharge or something like that. Some people might take it to the extreme, so it's totally common for me to remind them.
There's always going to be edge cases. What can you do?
Exactly. But cool to see that we have the same feels about the yoga pants. Tap on. So, as I just said, I'm not alone here. I'm here with Mix. Would you care to explain something about what it is that you do for?
Yeah. So it's a good question. Up until maybe last year, I would have said I'm a technology journalist. Mostly because I cover stuff about technology and then the internet. I started covering apps and security, and then I gradually moved into covering social media and internet culture, and that's how I got into sex tech. There's actually a thing within TNW where I work. My employer is basically called TheNextWeb, but we shorten it to TNW. They call me the porn reporter over there. That's how I'm known. But recently, I gradually started moving into cryptocurrency and blockchain coverage, and we launched a new website a new media sub-brand that focuses specifically on that space, and I'm the editor of that website. It's called Hard Fork. Check it out if you care about cryptocurrency and blockchain. I don't necessarily do the research all the time. I do a little bit of investigating. Sometimes I speak to the people who did the research or developed the things that we're writing about. My job is more or less to find interesting concepts and then present them to readers in a more simplified way. It sounds very boring, but I think we do it in a very amusing way. I think TheNextWeb, that's what it's kind of known for. We meme a lot and we do it well.
You meme a lot.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So basically, to find the new quotes and the new memes, check out TheNextWeb. And you were mentioning about Hard Fork as well. And that's basically like a cryptocurrency related website.
Yeah, it's a cryptocurrency related news website. What we're trying to do is basically we wanna cover cryptocurrency and blockchain in a way that we notice that there's a lot of not misreporting, but there's a lot of interesting topics that go underreported in the space, and we want to bring attention to stories like that, basically, that wouldn't have been in your on your radar unless you come and check out Hard Fork.
All right, all right, all right. Then another question: did they call it hard fork because it's hard fork off the next web?
I am glad you mentioned that. That's part of the reasoning we put behind it. Yes, it's the first media sub-brand that forked off the next web, and it's also based on cryptocurrency. So we thought it would be a perfect double entendre for that.
Awesome. Talk about wordplay there. All right, interesting. We'll get back to that a bit more, and especially about the other things that you do, because most certainly I have some questions that I would love to ask you. But let's just continue on with some other developments regarding the adult industry. Live cam performer Amber Kelly earns an average of £1,000 a day, which is quite a lot. Don't you agree for webcamming?
I don't know what the standard rate for webcamming is, but I know she's doing fantastic. Props to her. I she's doing way better than I am. That's what I know.
Now, is it conceivable that reality that more and more of these high paying private exclusive agencies like this will enter the webcam market? Or we will just see a majority of the cam workers and consuming gravitate towards big sites like Flirt for Free, Cam4, and Live Jasmine, as is the case of right now?
I think the porn space is a bit more fractured than other spaces that do video and webcamming. There's not such a big monopoly, but at the same time, there's always the case that most performers and then most users also gravitate to the more popular websites. So, and most of these are kind of monopolies, you know what I mean? So I think there's going to be probably some sort of a leader within that space.
Fair point, but however, live cams aren't really porn, right? They're more like personal erotic entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, I phrased that incorrectly, I guess. I still think about it. I wanted basically to. I think in the adult kind of entertainment website, there's more separation. Also, some porn sites have their own webcam sections, so there's some overlaps within in that sense. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Now
she's doing well though.
Man,
really
like £1,000 per day, that's not something that I'm making, man. Even if I would do like webcam shows, I don't think I would earn myself £1,000 per day.
When I make £1,000 per day, I say I had a good day. Apparently that's a normal day for her. So
personal question: what would you charge if you were a cam boy?
I wouldn't give it away for free. You know what I mean? I think I'll have to charge for. I'm gonna set a price that I'm comfortable with, because I think there's a lot of anxiety and then risks when you expose yourself out there. So you might as well be comfortable with what you're getting paid. I wouldn't go for.
Would you charge per minute or demand gift or donations?
I would open both of these streams of revenue. I would treat that as a business. I'm gonna look at the metrics and see what makes sense.
All right. Very smart, very smart answer. Very correct answer. Well, then we'll end up with the last item, and that's sex-positive porn director Erica Lust gets kicked out of YouTube. Erica Lust, famous for her tasteful, real-world female-empowering sex films on sites like X Confessions and Lust Cinema, got kicked off YouTube. Why Not and Motherboard report that she uploaded a series of safe-for-work interviews with sex workers. No actual sexual porn was shown, just sex workers recounting their experience. Apparently, she linked her porn sites in the video description, and the YouTube ban hammer came down in a fell swoop, destroying her channel. Do you think that YouTube was responding too rigorous to that? Because there's basically no sexual scenes or something. It's just sharing stories and experiences.
I'm actually a fan of her work. She for those unfamiliar with her, she does those very artsy kind of movies. She explores different perspectives, so there's more focus on the female perspective in her work. And I think she's an excellent filmmaker, but I do think that YouTube was consistent with its rules and the way that it's been handling its censorship on its platform. It's been very kind of hostile towards sexual content. They always advise that whatever appears on that website should be appropriate for people from all ages. And in some cases, there's options to include a warning if there's something there. But I think that the problem might have been the link to those other websites that included, explicit content.
Yeah, because let's be honest, there's a lot of vintage porn to be found on YouTube, and
For sure, there's actually that's a big thing. A lot of people are hosting porn on YouTube, but that goes undetected. Had they noticed it, it would have probably been taken down. There's also the factor to consider that YouTube works with advertisers, and there's been a series of controversies with basically ad problems on YouTube over the past few years. So they want to be as careful as possible, and I do think chances are it might have just been taken down by an AI. YouTube is Google is one of the leaders in machine learning. They use all sorts of AI, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was just picked up by the algorithm and removed.
I can understand that, but you should be able to talk freely about sex, isn't it?
No, I agree with that, and I'm perfectly sure that if you look on YouTube for other videos, there's lots of YouTube channels who talk about sexuality openly.
I mean, for example, I remember like a few years ago there was a lot to say about video content of hip hop artists, for example, that they were way too X-rated. But nowadays, if you look at like the house videos, it's basically pretty much the same thing. It's like soft porn at sometimes, and still it's accepted, and still it seems to be fine within the rules and perspectives of YouTube that they still accept it.
Yeah, I think it's a fundamentally different issue. I really do think that it probably, I haven't read what YouTube's explanation for that case was, but I would really my money is on the problem being the link, and that it's leading to a website with explicit content, which might be problematic for them. I think had it not been for that, it might have just slipped through. I've really seen tons of videos that are sexual in nature, or at least suggestive, highly suggestive, and they still get away with it. I think it was the link.
Cool. We'll still update it for that. Nonetheless, good luck to Erica Lust, because I've seen her work as well, and for what I see that she's doing a beautiful thing.
She's very talented. I wish her the best too. And she was also in that Netflix documentary recently, no?
I haven't heard that.
I can't remember the name of the documentary, but she was in one of the episodes. Hot Girls Wanted.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about your specific role in TheNextWeb.com, but what do you think is the most extra interesting about exploring and researching innovation in sex tech?
It's imagining how it would feel once it gets to the point where it's where the technology is polished and the user experience is polished. I think that I'm not a person that experiments with toys all that much, but I like paying attention to what's out there. Actually, the only toy I've kind of played with is Kiiroo's collaboration with Flashlight on the launch. I wrote a review on that on TheNextWeb. You should check it out. It's called How I Outsourced Masturbation to Automation, if you want to find it. Well, yeah, that's one of the things. And then the other thing is I really want to try those toys once they're out there. That's the part I'm looking forward to.
Now, do you seek to experience all technologies you write about in firsthand?
Most of the times I would prefer to try out the gadget or the technology that I'm writing about before I cover it, or at least have a demo of sorts. Sometimes
so basically with the previous article that we were talking about, you've experienced it yourself.
So Kiiroo got in touch and they sent us a demo review unit, and I tried it on and then I wrote about it. Some other times, if the technology is still in its very early ages but it seems promising, I would be willing to take a bet and perhaps write about that technology if it's interesting enough and I trust that the founders are serious people who are really looking to make a contribution to the space.
Just a personal question now. Is it like you experience it firsthand, or do you have sometimes you see the device and be like, you know what, I might call a friend of mine who might be into this to let him be the guinea pig, or would you like to be the experiencer yourself?
I prefer to try things myself, but if I know that the technology isn't suited for myself, like for example, I know you can probably use the Kiiroo has a product called the Pearl,
Mhm.
It's a vibrator. I think it's a teledildonic, whatever. You can use it if you want as a guy. It's just not my thing. So I would rather give it to a person who I trust, and let them try it out, and then ask them for their opinion.
It's a coincidence that you've been talking about that because later in the show we'll be talking about the Pro Tool as well. And for those who've been listening, just stay listening and you might be able to win it. But like I said, more about that later. Now, what's the craziest sex-related concept that you've ever come across? Be it a device, piece, software, or service you ever come across?
So actually, you kind of mentioned that earlier in the piece. It's definitely the sex robots. I don't know where they're going, but that kind of space looks ridiculously interesting to me because most of these robots just look terrible right now, and it seems like it's gonna be awful to have sex, if I can even call it that way, with a robot. But
isn't it just like development? I mean, like
yeah.
Practice makes perfect. So, like, of course, the first example would be like very robotic, but it's the same thing like the developments of the internet, right? I mean, I remember like the first time we were using internet, you were still hearing the sound like. Nowadays, it's not even imaginable that it used to be like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. There might be something like that. I won't be too surprised if there's a shift at some point where it becomes perfectly acceptable and perhaps even many people enjoy doing that. I'll be interested to see what happens. I personally want to try the robots before they get to that point, so I can at least appreciate the progress that they've done with the technology over time.
You ever experienced one of the robots?
No, I haven't, but I heard there was robot. It was a doll museum in Barcelona. I wonder if they have some of these robots. I need to check that out. I'm not sure if the museum is still open. I think they had some problems legally, but if it is, I would love to try that out.
Cool. Well, actually, basically staying on to that topic, do your own sexual preference and sexuality play into how you see and use those experience in certain tech innovations?
So certainly in some opinion pieces, I think I do explain. Like I'm straight, so I do explain that. I say where I'm coming from. I think I try to stay as objective as possible and to take into account as many different details and perspectives when I'm doing those things. But I guess it does. I mean, it's almost like it's inseparable from who I am in a way. I live. I'm a very kind of open minded person. Then I'm also a very direct person.
Yeah.
So I don't really try to. It does. That's the short answer. Yeah.
Cool. Now we always also thanks to Quora, we had set up a few questions for you as well, which are more about virtual reality and augmented reality. One, for example, is as virtual reality develops, will it eventually be possible for men or women to experience what it's like to be the opposite sex? Out of your
I
perspective?
don't know how to answer that question. I would be an interesting concept if it does. I think it's very advanced, it sounds, because then I don't even know where you start to replicate that experience. But if it does work, that would be something, wouldn't it be?
I think so, right? I think so.
Yeah.
Now, you're quite the authority on blockchain and hashgraph technologies. Which applications for blockchain and hashgraph technologies will become important to sex techs, out of your perspective?
So with cryptocurrency and blockchain stuff, one of the, I guess, most often mentioned use cases is micropayments and cheap transactions, and I think that can be a lot of that can be done can be used in the porn industry, for example, the adult industry in general. You can make payments for like anonymous payments with certain cryptocurrencies. Other cryptocurrencies, just give you the option to stay private in other ways. Then you have adult performers who are working with donations and using a cryptocurrency that has very low fees can do a lot for those performers to earn more. I think I read recently in a piece by Motherboard that basically mainstream adult performer websites these days charge up to 50% of the performers' fees which is a huge fucking hit on your streams of revenue if you think about that.
Yeah.
With cryptocurrencies, there's promises to basically improve that to only 5% of fees included, or even less. But we're far away from being able to handle as many transactions as centralized solutions like the standard websites currently can handle. So it might hurt the experience, which again would hurt their market in the first place.
Well, then about that, because Pornhub, they announced that they would start accepting crypto. Do you think that Verge would be a logical choice for them?
I have a funny story about that. So before the Pornhub and Verge revealed the partnership that they had, Verge asked its users to kind of they were crowdfunding a bunch of money so they can announce a partnership. I wrote about that because I thought it was very problematic, and then we did several pieces on Hard Fork about the Verge situation with Pornhub, with the Verge situation with raising money and just not letting know their users what kind of partnership that is, because usually you announce the partnership and then people start investing because they trust your partnership. Verge kind of reversed that whole situation in a very ridiculous way, and then I got an embargo from Pornhub's team. They told me they usually give me the information ahead of time, which basically gives me time to prepare a piece and publish it when it is selected by them time, and that's a very standard practice in journalism. But this time around, Pornhub contacted me and they said, hey, we have a big thing coming. It's actually related to blockchain. We would love to give you the information ahead of time, but we can't give you all the details. So they told me we're going to be adding...
They were real secretive about it. Like they knew that they had like a real surprising state-of-the-art development.
Yeah, that, and then there's also perhaps some legal caveats with cryptocurrencies, because there's lots of insider trading accusations going on. There's no legislation against insider trading in cryptocurrency right now, but I guess they were just playing it safe. So they wanted to keep the lid on that information for as long as possible to prevent it from leaking. And then, they gave me the information. They said, we're going to be launching a cryptocurrency, whatever. And at some point it said it's going to give our users the option to buy premium subscriptions anonymously.
It's actually funny that First said we actually have news about doing something with the blockchain this time, right?
Yeah, but it's happening a lot in the Dode space. But let me finish my story.
Sure.
So when they mentioned it's anonymous cryptocurrency, that limits down the scope of the possible cryptocurrencies they would be listing quite significantly. There's not that many anonymous cryptocurrencies, and usually you would expect it to be a mainstream solution like Bitcoin, Ethereum, something like that.
Yeah.
So I knew it wasn't going to be any of these. I was like, did they make a mistake and they just think Bitcoin is anonymous? I wouldn't put it past them. They're not a cryptocurrency company. And then I started thinking about it. Oh fuck, Verge has been planning to announce something
it's
for a
not
week.
Anonymous, but the Bitcoin market does work in a way that actually, like, normal things that wouldn't be ethical to sell like on a normal site like eBay, it does give you the possibility to track it because it's hard to trace, right?
Yeah, it's been used in cases like that, but recently people have been switching to other cryptocurrencies which have private mechanisms built into them, like Monero and Zcash, for example. But the Verge situation, again, it's like, so when Pornhub told me that they're adding a cryptocurrency, and then same week as Verge is collecting money to announce a partnership, I was like, it seems like a very big coincidence. It probably is a very big coincidence. I don't think Pornhub would work with someone like Verge, who's been mired in controversy. And then there we go. Pornhub, an hour before the partnership goes live, Pornhub contacts me and they tell me it's Verge. And yeah, it was very unexpected for me, especially because Verge has had some problems. They recently had to hard fork their network because they were attacked. Stuff like that. It seems like there would have been safer options.
So, if that being the case, what crypto would you like to see them work instead?
Monero would have made sense, I believe. Accepting Monero would have been fine.
But it's a private one as well, right?
Yeah, Monero is a private one, so it has a different mechanism than Verge, but it's still a private token that has good reputation within the space, even though some cryptographers I've spoken with are worried that it was built by people who don't have expertise in cryptography necessarily.
But they do seem to understand that like discretion is very much valued.
Yeah, Monero recently there were pieces that it's been getting extremely popular within the dark web, which is the place where you go if you want to buy something illegal, or I mean, it's a separate kind of place on the internet.
Yeah.
Where illegal stuff.
The dark web is not our cup of tea, but that's just opinion-wise.
Yeah, of course.
However, if you were a betting man, on what cryptocurrency would you place your cash when it comes to finding broad adoption in the adult industry as a whole? Would it be the Monero or?
I don't know. I wouldn't say so. There's many cryptocurrencies that are building products specifically for the adult entertainment industry, and it would probably one of them might just shape up to be a leader within that space. I don't know how close we are to that point.
Spank Chain?
They're getting a lot of buzz around them. I am not sure if they have a working product. Last time I checked, they hadn't completed their working product. They've done some tests. I would say they're going to have problems unless the Ethereum network scales up. I know they're working with some solutions that going to make it possible to handle more transactions and interactions on the platform, but that might be a problem. But in any case, they're doing the right things in terms of marketing and PR. They're getting a lot of exposure, so they're in a good position to become one of the leading companies.
True that, but there's more to it than just being a friendly team, right?
Yeah, for sure. You need to build the actual product and work with the people working on your using your platform, and integrating them into the process and improving on your product so they can improve on their work as well.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing those views. Now, I was already mentioning that we had set up a few extra questions from Quora. And one of them, that's a very interesting question, like dealing with the developments of VR and AR, as you might know, in adult industry. Which one do you think would be more successful?
That's a good question. So if you ask Apple, I would think they would probably say AR. They're betting on augmented reality quite a bit these days. If you ask a company that focuses on virtual reality, they would probably, like Facebook, for example, with Oculus, they would probably say that VR is going to be more important. For the adult industry, VR to me makes more sense. In the end, it kind of lets you focus on the porn exclusively. You don't really have to interact with your.
So you think that virtual reality will have a more profound impact on the adult entertainment right now?
At that point, yes. I don't know about the future. I can't really look that further. Both AR and VR aren't my specialty. Even though I try to stay updated, but yeah, my bet is on VR.
But do you dare to say that same thing about 5 years from now?
Sure, VR has been trying to break into mainstream for a while. It hasn't done so well. AR isn't doing much better either.
No, that's true, but I do see that VR is taking on a new development these days, because like we've been talking about VR since the 80s already, man. I mean, like Breakfast Club basically was one of the first, now not the movie, but like the Breakfast Club generation, like the Brady Bunch actors. It was already around that time that you already saw some videos that you saw like, hey, they might get virtual reality into this stuff. But
it's pretty insane when you mentioned that in the 80s, because I remember one of the first times I saw the concept of virtual reality, I saw it on this Cartoon Network show called, I believe it was called Johnny Quest or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was a mad concept. I was like, man, this looks, and especially to a child, just imagine having something that transports you to another world.
Actually, to be honest, like the worst virtual reality experience that I've seen was in a porn movie, to be honest.
In a porn movie?
It was in a porn movie. I don't know what the name of the porn movie was, because it was like one of those. It was on a commercial broadcasting channel on television. So basically, it was like uber soft porn. First off, second off, it was about a invisible dude, and he created like a virtual reality glass, and given to that technology, they could experience like all kinds of fantasies. Basically, it was around the beginnings of the 90s, like ending the 80s or something like that. So it was real interesting.
One thing I always wonder about virtual reality though is like, so when you mention you have that environment where you can interact with objects, but at the same time you have to hold those how do you call them, the sticks that you kind of navigate within the virtual reality.
The touching pads.
Yeah, can you imagine, for example, having a sex toy that is like a is like a it's like a sex toy and also a joystick for controlling virtual reality.
Well,
How do you fucking multitask there? You know what I mean? You only have that many hands.
True that, true that. Well, like I think they will find a solution. They've been thinking about this as well. Now, an interesting thing as well is like the ultimate avatar of VR and AR is like the simulation, like the danger room of X-Men, if not like the holodeck on Star Trek. How long do you think we will see the real, fully tactical, real version of that?
It's gonna take some time. I would say 5-10 years at least.
That's not wow. That's not long, given the fact, like I mean, like I said, the developments of VR has been going on.
Yeah, it's true. I think we're speeding up at that point, but no less than 5-10 years, I would say. Could be even longer. I'm not the right person to ask about that, to be honest, but I think it's gonna take quite some time.
And do you think it will be a full sensory experience, like touch, smell, movement?
So the way I imagine those things would happen is that it would happen at stages, or at least there's going to be different people working separately on these different sensory sensations, and then combining them together would be the difficult part, because you have to create a system that handles all of these. Well, it's probably going to be expensive, so chances are in the beginning it might be like a leisure activity for, like the cinema was back in the day, something like that. I don't know. That's I think one way it could take.
Interesting. And do you think it will start at adult entertainment first, or do you see other people breaking a lance for taking front of this? Like, for example, like what would happen if, like, for example, Apple starts to take part in this as well?
Yeah, Apple has always been good at kind of pushing new technology to the mainstream. They're never the first to do something, but they would get at the right time and would have big impact. I think gaming has been doing a lot for virtual reality. Most people used to kind of shit on VR games up until a couple of years ago, but I think there's also a change in the ways you experience that sensation in the first place. It's like, I think that's the interesting part. People tend to enjoy things that they haven't felt before, or at least they tend to enjoy them once they get used to them. And that's personally one of the things that makes me excited about the prospects of VR in porn.
Cool. Then, do you know any big players in the adult VR? Like anyone who stands out personally right now, to your opinion?
I don't really follow that closely. I know some VR producers who make VR porn, but I just know the names. I haven't really checked all that much VR porn. I did check one. I did try it out once, but it was with a phone kind of VR set. It's not the optimal viewing experience. You know what I mean? I don't wanna. I don't wanna. It's just not enough to have a good opinion on that.
So mobile VR is much more different than native VR.
Yeah, native VR I feel has a better. I mean, it's just the experience is a bit more polished and ironed out. It feels.
Will
Yeah,
you think it will ever compete in the future with native VR?
I think mobile VR is gonna get quite decent. Probably it's never gonna be as good as the standalone sets who are just specialized in VR. But I don't see why the technology wouldn't improve to the point where you can have solid commercial products for consumers.
Now, other questions about coming from Quora. How do you see the teledildonics evolving over the next decade? Will we see more haptic and kinesthetics technology applied to sex tech?
Yeah, haptic and kinesthetic and probably reactive in a way. So you know what I mean? Maybe toys that kind of adjust to your genitals or something like that. I've been watching. I didn't report on that myself. I just saw videos. There was scientists were developing basically plastic that kind of can morph, and other fabrics that can morph. I'm not sure if it was plastic, but it was definitely a material that morphs.
Silicone, perhaps?
Can't remember what it was. It might be. Would be. That's a good guess. But yeah, I think that's one of the
I'm
things that
hearing
make me
memory
interesting.
cloth.
Yeah, that might be the correct term. I don't know exactly what it is, but
So basically, that's like a material that once you shaped it, it still will shape back to like it used to be or something.
yeah, I
like
guess it's similar to those. It reminds me of those materials they use in mattresses. Like, it remembers the way
the
your
foam.
body. Yeah, exactly. So probably works on the same principle. I would be interested to see how those work out, because it's nice to have the option to customize your sex toy to your tools.
Now, there are not many payment processors that allow adult content creators to use them. Are the ones that they do, are they just sex positive and part of the sex tech? Or are they also sex tech themselves?
I think they're part of the sex tech ecosystem, yes. And now that you mentioned that, I think that's where cryptocurrency and blockchain can make a difference, assuming it overcomes its technological challenges that prevent the technology from currently being able to be used on a normal production level. I do agree that sex workers and adult content performers have been having a lot of issues with mainstream websites. Patreon, for example, recently had some new policies that prevented a bunch of adult content creators from receiving donations. And most of these, well, not most of, but many of these people, for them, that's a very important stream of revenue. It's what basically guarantees that they can make rent sometimes. And it's important that they have platforms that allow people to support them in that way, because in the end, that's their lives.
It's interesting because their Patreon is cracking down on pinup artists. So nudity isn't porn, but why do you think that they are shifting to a sex negative stance?
I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't looked at that story for a while. It happened months ago, I believe. I can't remember the exact time, but it's been a while.
So basically, for those who aren't catching up with that, would you basically explain what happened?
So at some point, Patreon had a crackdown on its content, which as a result of which many adult content people were driven out of the platform, or they had their accounts suspended, which meant that and Patreon is a platform for donations. It lets people kind of make monthly or one-time donations for creators, so they can support their art and enable them to create more. And for some reason, they had a crackdown that affected a lot of sex workers or people who work in the adult content industry, and there was a little bit of a social media outrage, and rightfully so. I think Patreon did not give enough time to these people. Further, before that, it gave them guarantees that it didn't kind of live up to. I'm not sure if Patreon changed his stance since then. I would certainly hope that's the case.
It's
But
kind of contradictory if you would think about it, because like nudity it's been part of creative art, and it's been part of art already. So why all of a sudden would they make the change like that?
I don't know.
Like if you would speculate.
I wonder. I probably something related to advertisers and investors and cleaning up their platform. There's SpankChain, for example. We mentioned them earlier today. Apparently, even though that many people within the blockchain space are interested in the technology behind it, investors aren't really willing to take any calls with them or talk about the company, because it's a taboo in a way. The sex industry is a taboo, the porn industry is a taboo, the adult content industry.
Even though there's a lot of money being made in porn industry,
There's a lot of
not
money.
as much as it used to be due to like the rises of porn sites, but there still is a lucrative business.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like some people and some companies just want to keep their profile clean. And yesterday I was telling a friend of mine I'm coming to this podcast today, and she works with corporates quite often. And when I told her that, and we get along with her, we talk about business stuff. I don't know, it's a weird connection that we have. But she was like, "Whoa, man, watch out with what you're doing with your name." And I was like, it never occurred to me it would be problematic to appear on a sex tech podcast in the first place. But to her, that was a concern.
Do you feel help will break those taboos with your articles?
I think my articles sometimes are a bit too much in your face. I like having fun with it, and I hope it's converting people to be more open-minded about it. But I wonder sometimes if maybe there's a better approach to kind of indoctrinate people into feeling okay with discussing sexual content.
So basically, that will be your mission, just to make it sure that it's out there in the open without any taboos about it.
Whenever I cover sex tech, I try to do that. I try to make it more of a less of an exotic kind of idea and more of a human thing, because we all in the end, we all do our own things, where somehow we all have sexual experiences. We should be able to discuss those openly. And if it happens that some of us are also building products, so we can, for the adult industry, they should be able to receive to have an equal opportunity to succeed. Unfortunately, you're always going to have to deal with changing people's opinion on that. There's nothing you can do about that. I just hope that with time we start being more accepting of that.
All right. Now, if you would be an active player in the field of sex tech, what events should be inspiring for you? Should you look at conventions like Aeroframe and AVN events, or should you look at CES, for example?
I'm not an event person, to tell you frankly. I absolutely hate the event experience. It's so cluttered, and it's a breeding ground for fucking, I don't know how to put it. I hate the exchanges with companies, because when you go there, it's full of product pitches. You don't really get to have a human kind of experience. In the end, you wanna talk it out openly. You wanna be able to talk with someone who's gonna tell you what the problems they're facing are, not just give you a 30-second pitch and move on to the next person. Then there's also the whole thing with a shitload of people just clustered in one room, and it's hot and warm, and everyone is sweaty. I don't like the events, to start with.
All right, then maybe a better question. What are the best sex events to your experience and to your
I haven't been to any of these, quite frankly. I wish I've never been invited to one either. That's perhaps why I haven't attended.
But maybe let's just put it in perspective. Like, let's create the hypothesis that you would be an active player in that field.
If I was to make the event,
Yeah.
Avian has almost like a Hollywood feel to it. I want something that's a bit more personal and kind of exposes people who work in the industry, on the edges of the industry in a way, just working with interesting technological things. I obviously prefer the tech spin because I'm familiar with that. There could be other ways, other things to explore on the edges of the industry, I would assume. But that would be my choice. I think it would be about technology, and I would try to make it a lot about experiencing the technology. So setting up demos, letting the creators explain how the technology works before that, but a smaller scale, something more personal in feel.
So you have the feeling that right now events are a bit too large, making it impossible to give them a personal experience.
There's certainly different events within the space, different sizes too, different feels. My experience, I've been to the most of the events I've attended. They've been big ones, and it's very busy, and kind of it's always a rush at these. So yeah, I can't speak for the other ones.
Nice. And just one personal question. If there is one development during sex tech which is about to reach the market anytime soon or sooner or later, what's the one thing for us to keep an eye on?
I have to go back to what I mentioned earlier today. It's that sex toy that you can use both as a joystick and as a sex toy. That's one of the things I'm really excited about. I just wonder logistically how that works, how it looks, how it feels, whether it's whether it's a good substitute for a hand. Yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Awesome.
And I wonder how it's gonna be different from women and for women and men, and you know, for other options if they're going to be available too. I just wonder how they adapt these.
All right, good to hear. Well, thank you for your information. For those who've been listening, if you find it very interesting what I've been talking about with Mix, just visit nextweb.com and check out all of his articles where you can find them. Correct.
Thanks so much for the shout out.
No problem.
Every week, we'll be giving away a new prize to one of our lucky subscribers. This week, we have the Kiiroo Pearl 2. Kiiroo Pearl 2 is a fully interactive teledildonic vibrator that has touch-sensitive technology and is entirely waterproof. What more would you want? All you have to do to stand a chance to win, like, comment, and subscribe. And next week, we will choose one of you to get this beauty.